Giving up too soon. There are very few secret recipes for success that will allow you to be able to come into something, work on it for a week, and make a bundle of cash. So giving up too soon, a big one. Not testing. This is going to become more and more important in internet marketing. There are many people out there who are attempting to find success online. The one thing that will separate the successful people from the unsuccessful people as we move forward from now is being able to understand the enormous amount of data that's available. The simplest way to test what you do is to have maybe two alternatives and be able to work out whether it's the first or second alternative that's producing the best results. If you can do that every time you do something, you're going to be involved in a process of continual improvement, and you'll move yourself away from the hordes who are not testing and who stay on the bottom rung. We've all heard of the shiny object syndrome, and I still suffer from this as well. I think there's something about people who are attracted to internet marketing, people who are not just trying to find cash, but people who are just generally interested in stuff and things that shine and look interesting and are worth exploring. But this can be a big problem when you're trying to get a project to become successful. So yes, by all means, there are certain shiny objects which we need, but there are others which we have to walk past. Perhaps come back and look at them another day, but we have to walk past them. Even though they're very worthwhile and worthy shiny objects, they're not relevant to what we're trying to do right now. Reinventing the wheel. Everything's been done, and as exciting and interesting as it might be to try and do it yourself, again, it's going to slow you down. So if it's been done, find out where it is and try to use what someone else has already spent a lot of time and energy on. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty now. Lack of daily goals. If you don't know where you're going today, or you think it's okay to lose today and just kick back and generally have a lack of focus because it's only today, you'll surprise yourself. Every day will end up being the same, and before you know it, a whole year will disappear, or 2 years, or 3 years. And it's not actually a question of having lack of daily goals. That translates into having lack of life goals. And in fact, you can break it up even further than that. If you have lack of goals for the next hour, that will invariably result in lack of goals for the day, and then we're back to it again. Lack of goals for a week, lack of goals for a month, lack of goals for life. Very big one. And again, I'm guilty of this as well. I have a mentor colleague who uses the expression, live deliberately. What he's saying is make sure that you're consciously squeezing everything out of every moment, not in an exhausting fashion, but in a productive way. Look for things that are exciting and interesting, things that make you happy, things that you're stimulated by, things that will make you financially secure, whatever it happens to be, but do it in a deliberate fashion. And are you running a business, or is this just a hobby? If you really want to get income out of this project, then it's a business, and it needs to be run as a business. And how differently would you approach it if you had to go off and open a shop each day, and you knew that you had to pay for the rent for that shop, and you had to have staff, and that if you didn't do things in a clever way and with complete determination and focus, that you'd have creditors coming to your door in a few months and you'd have to shut down, and that would be the end? Wouldn't that change our focus? And sometimes, because what we have to lose online only seems to be our time, sometimes we can approach things as a hobby rather than a business. So let's have a look at those points and see how we can do something about them in terms of our web TV show and getting it off the ground, making it very successful, and achieving some financial goals. Grab your sheet of paper, write down these points, and sketch in a simple comment next to each of them. Firstly, lack of focus. It's time to make a final decision about your audience and your market if you haven't already. And you need to have a level of confidence about whether this is a marketplace that will allow you to achieve your goals if they're financial. It's time to push aside some of those projects. I believe that 2 projects as a maximum is enough. So you have to do something. You have to make some cold, hard, calculated decisions about what you're going to do with those other projects. Some will have to go in the bin, others might have to go in your someday, one day file, whatever you call it, but you can't do more than 1 or 2 projects at a time. Ideally 1. Priorities. What are the 2 or 3 most important things that you can do for your web TV show today? Now, those may be very tactical things, but nevertheless they're important, and those are the 2 things or the 3 things that you can do for it today. Do those things, then move on. Perhaps give yourself a break, attend to anything else that needs to be done, but get those 2 or 3 priorities done today, however small they are. One of the biggest lessons that or insights that one can learn from a time management point of view is to do with emails. In fact, how often do you start your internet marketing day by opening your emails? This is a surefire way of losing the next 2 or 3 hours, or even the next day, or even sometimes a week. Heck, I can think of opening my emails on a Monday, finding something I'd never even thought about that looked really interesting and was obviously the next best way to make millions of dollars, and realizing 2 weeks later that I'd been distracted by something that I actually hadn't even intended to become involved in. It's a big issue. Someone that I was listening to just recently said that he opens his emails twice a day. He opens them at midday for an hour or half an hour, and he opens them at 5 o'clock again for an hour or half an hour. So he knows that every day he's got his morning, and he's going to achieve some things during his morning, and there are not going to be these little distractions that drag him off in a new direction. There are a number of systems that you're going to need in place to get your web TV show to success, not the least of which is making a decision to produce content and knowing how you're going to produce that content. So how am I going to record my content? Am I going to just focus on screen productions like the one you're watching right now for a while, because that can produce very high value content? How am I going to do that? What tools am I going to use? I could use lots of different tools, but why? Why not just use one approach to it and do it well? Am I going to keep changing the way that I approach that technique? For instance, if I'm using screen capture, am I going to use PowerPoint one day and then I'm going to cut and paste things into Word the next? Little things like that. Put some systems in place, some routines, some structure around how you're going to put this web TV show together. You might decide that you're going to produce your TV content and upload everything as you produce it to YouTube. This is something that I do. And then when you've uploaded maybe 10 pieces of content, and incidentally you might want to do this just for the traffic that it generates, not necessarily because YouTube's the best place to put it, but after you've uploaded maybe 10 videos, then you use a mass downloading program which scrapes all that stuff back off YouTube so that you can have backups of it, also that you can actually move it into another place, because I find that often it's just easier to put all that stuff into YouTube and to get the descriptions and so forth and keywords set up first. But again, you might have a different approach to that. Let's get rid of this whole issue to do with being overwhelmed. There's no reason why we should be overwhelmed. It's our life, it's our project. Just be calculating about what you allow to drift into your life. I was reading something this morning, in fact, about a well-respected business figure who said he stopped reading newspapers a year ago. You know, I mean, to a lot of people that might sound quite dramatic. Personally, I actually stopped reading newspapers, it must be 5 or 10 years ago, because I realized, well, firstly, very little of the stuff that's in a newspaper these days is there for any more than creating sensation and selling the next copy of the paper. A lot of it is old news anyway, and frankly, how much of it do I actually need to take me where I'm going? So challenge your paradigms, challenge how you allow information and time-consuming events into your life. You may want to completely change the way that you approach things, because the world has changed and it's happened subtly. It's crept up on us.